I really do hate coming back from a short break from streaming. In 2 days, when you keep up with news in an environment that's this breakneck, 2 days does feel like a long time. You guys see this, by the way? This Smithsonian has pulled a an Oceania move here and removed Trump from the impeachment exhibit in the American History Museum. That's cool. Why? Yeah, you can probably guess. It never happened. A person familiar with the exhibit plans who was not authorized to discuss them publicly, everything gets leaked. So the change came about as part of a content review the Smithsonian agreed to undertake following pressure from the White House to remove an art museum director. After this story published, the Smithsonian said in a statement that a future and updated exhibit will include all impeachments. So they might roll out a revised version in the future that includes Trump, but in a different way than he was included before, or they might be lying and not have him at all. They're restoring it to have Trump in it. Okay, so they are saying that Trump's name will be restored to it, but they're going to be editing it then. Otherwise, they wouldn't, remove it. Of course, it's impossible to take anything the Smithsonian says seriously because they're kind of incentivized to lie. A label referring to Trump's impeachments had been added in 2021 to the National Museum for American History's exhibit on the American presidency in a section titled Limits of Presidential Power. The section included materials on the impeachment of Presidents Bill Clinton and Andrew Johnson and the Watergate scandal that helped lead to Richard Nixon's resignation. The placard, which was meant to be a temporary addition to a 25-year-old exhibition, did not meet the museum standards in appearance, location, timeline, and overall presentation. Okay, so yeah, this is obviously bullshit. An insider from the Smithsonian says that pressure from the White House caused them to remove it. And then after the story published, the Smithsonian comes out and says, oh, no. We're just removing it to because we didn't like the exhibit. Don't worry, we'll fix it. Yeah, okay, sure. Right, yeah, okay, sure. Yes. Now that display is returned to the way it appeared in 2008. Interesting that if they had issues with the aesthetics or placement of the exhibition, that rather than take the whole thing down and remodel it entirely, they instead just revised it to a point in time before Trump was in office. They're so dishonest, dude. Oh, yeah, no. We're just doing general revisions. And as is always the case, when renovating a display in a museum, what you do first is you restore it to the way it was 17 years ago. And then you go and replace the whole thing. That's normally how you do things. Not gonna lie, this should low-key be a crime. Well, it's their museum. What are you gonna do? It's so obvious as well. Yeah, well. Working at the Smithsonian must be one of the cushiest jobs ever. You'd be wrong, actually. Obviously, the higher-ups probably have a cushier job, but a ton of people who work at the Smithsonian, to my understanding, are volunteers, hard workers. It's interesting because you would think that, so in my mind, right, you would imagine that when an authoritarian government starts rewriting the past to suit itself, they would go after weaker people, individuals, They would go after activists, they would go after dissidents, they would go after political opponents, but the institutions would be the ones to hold out the longest. Because they have power, they have money. But in reality, the opposite is happening. The institutions, Smithsonian, Hollywood, these law firms, whatever, they're folding immediately. But the Trump administration has basically done nothing to address the beliefs and perceptions of the average person. Maybe because there are more of us? I don't know. It's because the institutions have more to lose? Yeah, I suppose. Jesus. The online companion for the display briefly mentions Trump's impeachments, but does not provide any further information about the cases, and a search of the History Museum's collection for impeachment yields 125 results for Johnson, Nixon, and Clinton, and a single Impeach Trump button from a 2017 environmental protest. Yeah. I think this is kind of specific to America since your institutions are uniquely dickish, TBH, or dickless, TBH. There might be some truth to that. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, capital folds to power most reliably because they tend to work together. But it's also haphazardly managed, right? Harvard, offered meek pushback after capitulation, but despite the capitulation didn't get Harvard or Columbia what the administration promised if they capitulated. They got nothing for being complicit. Universities behave more like corporations now than in the past. How do you fix something like this? How do you fix institutions just folding instantly to federal power? How do you fix people obeying in advance? I really, really do feel like if you go back 150 years, 200 years, this wouldn't have been as much an issue. Like, imagine you had a radically populist, anti-intellectual president in like 1892 or something, you know, and they were belligerent, they were stupid, and they were taking shots at places like Harvard. I feel like Harvard would have been a fortress back there, or back then. You know what I mean? I feel like back in those days, maybe I'm totally wrong. I feel like Harvard or Columbia or whatever you want, they would have planted their feet in the ground. They would have been like, no, fuck you. We're like massive centers of power, you know? It's because we've lost the American spirit. Well, in the case of universities, it's probably because universities are basically just like real estate speculation portfolios with educational institutions attached. So the fact that the people making decisions at places like Harvard are the people whose job it is to make money. Like, the people who run Harvard are not educators. The people who run Harvard are businessmen. And to an extent, this has always been the case, but I think it's more pronounced today than it used to be. It's aligned interest, the university's administration. Kind of, but they're not really aligned, though. The schools used to be more prestigious. Yeah, well, it used to be more impressive to go there. Former head of Harvard talking about this. It's easy to be brave when you're not in the hot seat.
I guess this firing of the BLS commissioner goes in the category of shocking but not surprising.
Yeah, I mean, this is way beyond anything that Richard Nixon ever did. I'm surprised that other officials have not responded by resigning themselves, as took place when Richard Nixon fired people lawlessly. This is a preposterous charge. These numbers are put together by teams of literally hundreds of people following detailed procedures that are in manuals. There's no conceivable way that the head of the BLS could have manipulated this number. The numbers are in line with what we're seeing from all kinds of private sector sources.
This doesn't really have anything to do with what I was talking about. Also, how the f does resigning fix anything? Liberal bullshit. Oh, they should have protested by resigning. Okay, they'll replace you. Nixon had to resign from his presidency for less than what Trump did, and is currently doing, yeah, for sure. Watergate was pretty much nothing compared to what's happening now. Summers goes on to yap about how bad it is for the markets and society. Well, that is true. We gotta find some way to fix this, man. I don't know if it's like a federal funding thing. I don't know if it's a real estate speculation thing. It feels like in America, there's just a gigantic power vacuum because corporations effectively control everything, but they don't have a mouthpiece for those interests. And if they did, it wouldn't be that popular. So the underlying rule is the corpos always get what they want. The wealthy always get what they want. But everyone has the right to stand up on a soapbox and say, like, I'm taking the reins and now I'm giving it this narrative. I'm assigning purpose to this course that we're already on. It does feel like a rudderless ship, yeah. Or a sinking one, sure, sure.